without further ado, I'll pass you over to Kim Stevens, Executive Director of the Partnership and driving force behind the CADRI initiative. So the Partnership is a non-profit group of industry experts helping the province implement Living Water Smart and Green Communities initiatives, helping to develop the Water Sustainability Act, and more generally facilitate collaboration between the local, regional, and provincial objectives.
Thank you, Chris. You're handing me the baton. Okay. Okay, so the Comox Valley, I mean, is part of a bigger team. That's really the key message in this slide. So you benefit from, you contribute to, and you leverage interregional collaboration. And so that's very much our focus is through the educational route to develop talent and develop tools and focus on outcomes. So in terms of the Georgia Basin Interregional Education Initiative, which really is 5 regional districts representing 75% of the population of British Columbia, have agreed to work together. And so in April of this year, we went back to all the boards, including this board here, and we asked them to recommit through 2017 in terms of working together as a team. So we've established what we consider to be a rather modest goal for 2017, because you don't change the world overnight, although we've been at this for a long time, like the last 15 years. And so by 2017, the program goal was that all local governments, really by that it means all those working within local government, would begin to understand how to achieve sustainable watershed systems through asset management. And I'll elaborate on these words later on. And in your handouts there, there's an article I'll again refer to, which is co-authored with Dave Allen, the CEO for Courtney, so we'll come back to that. So, as you reflect on this past year, Southwest BC, we dodged a bullet. And really, we were saved by a couple of days of rainfall in August. And I think, Glenn, I can look at you and sort of say, by the end of July, folks were worried.
Things are getting pretty dusty and dry, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but that's the wake-up call, right? That's the wake-up call for everyone in local government. And this is why this water-centric or water-wise guide is so timely and relevant, because the reality that we are dealing with is the wetter, warmer winters, and the longer, drier summers. And we have the fixed amount of storage, whether it be Comox Lake or Cowichan Lake or Capilano Lake, wherever you go in this bioregion. And so really what we're talking about today is the beginning of a process to align mandates, roles, and responsibilities to successfully design with nature. Nancy will pick up on these words when we're talking about the guide. And Glenn will also pick up on the water balance integrity in settled areas. So these are kind of the key messages. And our aha in 2000, and in terms of my background, I guess there's two provincial documents which I'm closely associated with. The first one really was in 1998 when I was a member of the provincial working group that was responsible for a water conservation strategy for British Columbia. And then in 2002, I was the project manager and principal writer for stormwater planning, a guidebook for British Columbia. And we've continued to build on those documents. I often say that in terms of what we've done for the last 15 years is really addressing the fine print of a water conservation strategy for British Columbia. But the aha in 2000 was realizing that we can actually manage the rain that falls, because people tend to think of the big deluges, but once we kind of stepped back and looked at what we were really dealing with, and thought of all the 180 rainfall events that we get in a year in the South Coast, and in the Okanagan it's like 120 rainfall days events a year. But when you looked at the number of days and how much precipitation fell on it and what the proportion of the volume was, you realize that 3/4 of the rain was falling in 160 of those events, and that's what we can manage, and that's really what today's session kind of illuminate. But it's an important concept to have in mind as we progress through the details of the guide. Now, in terms of 3 things that came together in 2014 at a provincial level which provide that overarching framework for what we do, the Water Sustainability Act, it's a game changer. Developed with Care 2014, another game changer. And so those in planning, you should be familiar with these, especially Developed with Care, because that's aligning the provincial environmental protection mandate with what you do on a daily basis. And lastly, in December of 2014, the official release date, Asset Management for Sustainable Service Delivery, a framework for British Columbia. And really it's, of the three game changers, this is the linchpin. This is the real driver for action, because it provides it's the regulatory driver that provides local government with the financial incentive to do things differently. And of significance, David Allen is the CAO of City of Courtenay. He is the co-chair of Asset Management BC. So the framework was through a collaborative process in terms of Asset Management BC, the province, Union of BC municipalities, but it's tied to the gas tax agreement. And then the gas tax agreement is how money is flowing to British Columbia from the feds for the next decade. It ties that commitment to funding to doing projects to, do you have an asset management plan? And really where everyone is trying to get the world of local government to is to progress beyond the basics of asset management, because if you're starting at ground zero, you go to the basics, but to move beyond that to sustainable service delivery. And I'll elaborate a little bit more. In terms of the partnership's role and you know, what we're trying to accomplish, well, if the priority for local government is to get your core services in order. Again, I'll look over at you, Glenn, in terms of basic water mains and sanitary sewers. So really, where we're going is, if we look ahead 2 years, remember I said by 2017 what the goal is? Well, by 2017 we want to be at a point in terms of working with our 5 regional partners groups, how to integrate watershed systems thinking and climate change adaptation. Get your house in order first in terms of asset management, and in 2 years from now, begin to understand where we need to go after that. But overarching all of this ultimately is regional water sustainability action plans, because all the things that you're doing, and over here, any water and land planning processes, here's what our responsibility is in terms of water sustainability action plan. They ultimately all kind of come together in terms of a water sustainability plan for the region. So rather than thinking in terms of there's going to be a plan, it's how do all the existing pieces get packaged up, and especially if you think back to that first slide or second slide where I showed the changing climate. And in terms of bringing it down to something kind of practical, again, I'm going to foreshadow Glenn, the twin pillars, we call them, for sustainable watershed systems through asset management, the water balance methodology, and that really flows from the guidebook, which is a regulatory document, and we have been evolving the methodology as we better understand the science for the last 15 years. And what we will be bringing along in parallel over the next year or two is what we're calling the ecological accounting protocol, and that's really flowing from the work that was initiated by the town of Gibsons in terms of recognizing nature's services. But I want to kind of bring that to a more meaningful state for you right now, which is, again, referring to the article by David Allen. That's your takeaway. You can read more about sustainable watershed systems. But the new paradigm that I'm really introducing today is to think of watersheds as infrastructure assets. The same as you think about water mains and sanitary sewers, the watershed is also an asset, because you really need to be thinking in terms of the integrated system. Watershed is an integrated system. And keep in mind when I talk about this, I am speaking from my perspective as an engineer and from the hydrology point of view, and from how water, when the rain falls, how it reaches the receiving waters. And so if you can think in terms of the 3 pathways, those 3 pathways being the surface runoff, that which goes deep, and where most of the water goes is in that laterally in that shallow zone. So those are the 3 pathways. Those are your infrastructure assets, and they provide the water balance services. So that's kind of like your high-level overview in terms of what's important to have in mind as you hear some of the details later on. So as we look ahead in terms of, I've mentioned the water balance methodology. Well, one of the next steps is accreditation, because what we see is a gap. There's a gap in practitioner education and professional development. It's really what we see as one of our objectives is to create a pool of trained and qualified practitioners And really, from a local government perspective, you have to know what it is you want so you know when you're getting the right stuff. And you need to have that assurance that what you're getting in the way of analyses, that actually is being, or actually they are being completed correctly. And in that context, the Comox Valley will be our demonstration region in terms of picking one of our regions to work closely with. But also in kind of working closely with this region as the demonstration region, there's now the opportunity for the Comox Valley and the Cowichan Valley to actually work in tandem, because as of 2 weeks ago, the Cowichan board adopted a resolution which is to integrate the Water Balance Express into the development approval process. So there's the opportunity to leverage each other's work here. And so on that note,